Hi, welcome to In My Head, In My Body at Target Gallery. My name is Shanti Norris, and I'm honored to be the curator for this exhibition. In My Head, In My Body is an exhibit of 22 artists from all over the country and across the globe who look at the many facets of living with mental health issues while finding our way through this challenging world. I'm particularly honored to curate this show during COVID-19, when most, if not all of us, are grappling with our own challenging emotional and mental states. During normal times, 1 in 5 adults face a serious mental health issue, which includes depression, anxiety, and PTSD. 3 to 5% of us struggle with bipolar or schizophrenia. What goes on in our heads profoundly affects our relationships to our own bodies, to those we love, and to the larger community. The works of these gifted artists give us a rare opportunity to consider our shared challenges together with beauty, grace, and profound insight. Though the mind-body connection is increasingly well understood in contemporary biomedicine, it is less so in the realm of mental health. Our nervous system constantly senses and interprets conscious and unconscious signals from within the body, including urges, feelings, emotional experiences, all that help us maintain equilibrium and survival. A dysfunction of this process, known as interoception, is increasingly recognized as an important component of our mental health condition. Although it's so prominent in our culture and around the world, we don't discuss mental health issues enough. As an artist and curator, my primary focus has been on the profound power of the arts as tools for healing. I believe the arts have the power to change us, to educate us, to inspire us, and to help us transform our suffering into meaning. This is as often true for the artist as for the audience or viewer. I have spent the past several years being chief arts curator at Inova Schar Cancer Institute in Fairfax, Virginia, bringing the power of the arts into every facet of care for cancer patients, caregivers, and clinicians. In My Head, In My Body is a very personal exhibition for me, as several close family members live with chronic mental health issues. I want to thank Target Gallery for hosting this exhibition at this time when we need it, and for inviting me to curate. I Had a Cough That I Couldn't Shake is a collage print by San Francisco artist Brandin Barón. The artist tells us that it's in response to the collective traumas surrounding the COVID-19 epidemic, so it's a piece for our time. In his face, you see the fear, the almost terror that many of us feel about the epidemic. You see the discomfort of the cough coming out of his mouth that covers everything, almost three-dimensional. The hieroglyphics in the back link us to periods throughout history where other people like us face similar things. The Intruder 2 is an acrylic painting on canvas that's one in a series of small, intimate paintings by the artist Clara Bolle of Rotterdam, Holland. She's based these paintings on the essay The Intruder by the French philosopher Jean-Luc Nancy. And The Intruder deals with Nancy's heart transplantation and touches upon important themes such as identity, community, and technology. And as Clara Bolle says in her statement, the heart is a paradox. Without it, we couldn't live, but at the same time, it's a time bomb that could cut us off in a second. Do we really know our own heart? Proving Ground is a wondrous short video performance piece by Jeffery Byrd of Cedar Falls, Iowa. I'm particularly intrigued by this video. We find ourselves in this open, serene, beautiful oceanside landscape. And for almost a minute, that's all we see. And then in comes this bizarre, surreal figure wearing boots and carrying balloons and a helmet, and crosses before our field of vision and leaves us once again in this serene landscape. The artist writes, "This surreal little action was created shortly before I suffered a stroke. In retrospect, it seems oddly prophetic." What do we think he meant by the proving ground? Return by Anna Cyan, Ontario, Canada. This large, almost life-size oil on canvas is about vulnerability, about stepping out, about fragility. You can feel it and see it in her body motion coming out with some trepidation, but also with almost a sense of joyfulness. The artist writes that this was painted amid shuttered doors and a hunger for personal protective equipment. This piece focuses on stepping out into the world without armor and without fear. It was important to me to include this piece in this exhibition, Artifact Number 4, Finite Connotation by Timothy DeVenney, Washington, D.C. When we label someone, we tend to disregard the actual person behind the label, and the label becomes self-applied and internalized. It tends to deplete the very nature of the human behind the label. So many people with serious mental health issues are treated not in clinics and hospitals, but in our jails and prisons. Grailsia, by artist Jeremy Diamond of Athens, Georgia, is a beautifully painted sculpture and a photograph of the artist wearing the sculpture. Grailsia Isabella is a Spanish moth which lacks a mouth and digestive tract to more effectively pursue reproduction at the cost of eventual starvation. The artist based this work on his own personal experience after becoming severely underweight, after stopping sleeping and eating in pursuit of productivity and academic success. Artist Stephanie Dyke of Reisterstown, Maryland, gives us 3 wearable quilted fabric sculptures, all part of her ongoing series called The Void, based on the lived experience of mental illness. El Perdedor means the loser. If only it were that easy, and the void. Each piece offers symbolic and literal elements aimed at explaining or helping viewers identify with the emotions, sensations, and self-talk of mental illness. The metaphorical elements include the obvious: masks, anonymity, differentness. This exquisite gray tone photograph is called Pull by Kathleen Greco of Pennsylvania. I find this both beautiful and challenging. Kathleen writes in her statement, Pull investigates how the mind is pulled into or pulled away from unconscious or conscious thought. For me, this wondrous and humorous ink drawing had to be in this exhibit. It's titled, How is Everyone Sleeping? With a question mark, by Megan Hildebrandt of Austin, Texas. As a mother of 3 children myself, I relate to this drawing. The ups and downs, the mental and emotional challenges of being a mother. Megan writes, This is a portrait of the first night I spent with my second baby home from the hospital last spring. It's a terrifying and beautiful weight to comprehend. Hide and seek is one of the more challenging images in the show. The medium is graphite, charcoal, and chalk. The artist is Rebecca Hofmann of Annapolis, Maryland. This piece embodies the physical nature of our psychological suffering. For me, it was important to be in the show because through my work of more than 20 years with people with cancer, one of the things I've learned is that the beginning of healing is first acknowledging that there is suffering, is just seeing it clearly in its physical, visible, tangible form. Only then can we move on to healing. I love the name hide and seek because when we hide, when we go inside, we are also seeking. seeking something greater, seeking some knowledge or truth, again, that turns us towards healing. Rebecca writes, in times of trauma, so often we revert back to fragile infancy. It is our inner struggle that can beautifully connect us with our true selves and with others. This shamanic sculpture is called Flicker 1 by Lauren Levato Coyne of Ferndale, Michigan. I say shamanic because it embodies the shamanic truth of a healer going into a different state of consciousness and bringing back something which is healing on this plane. I'll let Lauren's words tell her story. I deal with anxiety and body dysmorphia that results in feeling everything from out-of-body experiences to different parts of my body feeling deformed or enlarged, or sometimes missing. I'm able to channel this artistically through some mental gymnastics that allow me to pivot and imagine my body as a landscape, my body as a bird, my body as a home for insects, my body as a camouflaged creature. This calms me, it brings me joy, and regrounds me back into my own body. This calms me, it brings me joy, and regrounds me back into my own body. As above, so below is a mysterious intaglio print in the surrealist tradition. The artist is Tanner Mothershead of Smithville, Missouri. I particularly like the large 3 orbs and the smaller ones throughout the print. As above, so below is an alchemical dictum suggesting that the body-mind is a microcosm of the larger world. Tanner writes, this print is a reflection on the necessity for unity both within oneself and one's surroundings. It literally depicts the human body as temple, with pathways and recessing interiors for exploration. Mary Murphy of Philadelphia brings us this deeply touching piece called Hybrid 2. The medium is oil pastel and colored pencil. It addresses, in a very personal way, the lasting mental and emotional effects of childhood sexual trauma, which is pervasive in every culture. Mary writes, my work marries painterly illusionism with the latent psychological aspects of digital manipulation to explore the sexual unconscious. I am a child incest survivor, and these images fuse the face of my abuser with my emotions into new, quasi-figurative hybrid forms. Embedded in them are references to body parts, some comic, others hideous. Playful yet disturbing, these images straddle comedy and tragedy. She goes on to say, I think of these works as visual descriptions of a hijacked developmental biology, images of a recursive absurdity, a fetus giving birth to itself, achieving autonomy through material and imagination. Artist Karen Olsen of Hope, Maine, brings us this evocative digital photograph entitled Fire, No Flame. She writes, I wanted a way to depict that ambiguous void, the space that lacks clarity or form. As I worked through my creative process with limited abilities, I discovered a minimal color palette and layers of reflected light would illustrate the language of the subconscious. I developed a specific method of intertwining elements digitally to portray the depth of the emotional experience. This image describes the internal physical state that arose from emotional pain. My legs were on fire. I experienced internal nerve tremors. I was immobilized by the experience and felt trapped. Virginia artist Alice Quatrochi brings us this remarkable acrylic painting entitled Inward Outreach. I love the muted colors, the covered face, both of which suggest internality, this extraordinary hand reaching out of the back of the head and arching downward and incorporating everything, including the speaking shadow. Alice writes, although our mind and body are inextricably intertwined, we are not directly aware of our thoughts or the processes by which we arrive at them. Therefore, an inherent disconnect is established between our mind and body. Can we ever know ourselves? Many have postulated that consciousness isn't a single brain state, but a conversation, a contest, or a dance between brains that creates a mental state that can involve two or generate from a population. Can we ever know each other? This lyrical and uplifting print is called Letting Go by Virginia artist Rania Razek. She writes, the place photographed was called Qiddiya, considered edge of the world in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It was at a time I, the photographer, dealing with the mental state of losing friends to cancer. It was the end of the year, and the pink scarf represented people who had breast cancer to let go and live life to the fullest as much as possible. It also represented to letting go of those who lost the battle and accepted life. The pink scarf thrown in the landscape background is the true meaning of letting go. I'm drawn to the symbolism in this beautiful painting and the atmosphere that it evokes. Aptly titled Fragile by Sidney Page Richardson of Round Rock, Texas. It shows us the fragility that we all experience from time to time, and as the artist states, is part of us. He writes, I wanted to create something soft, the feather, to represent the spine and rib cage. And I wanted something chaotic to represent my mind. When I'm stuck in the deepest darkness, surrounded by chaos and my fragility, I am me. In the realm of mental and emotional health, women face unique challenges and experiences. New York City artist Francesca Schwartz explores this in this large multimedia sculpture, Never Again. She writes, in my work, I'm inspired to use ephemeral materials that reflect a contemplation about women. Confounding things happen to women's bodies during their lifetimes. We become divided subjects from the beginning, segregated from the womb to become ourselves, ushered into our seasonal existence with the flow of blood. What inscriptions, invasions, beautifications, and mark-making will occur? Many of the world's wisdom traditions teach that uncontrolled desires are a source of our unhappiness and of mental turmoil. This seemingly light-hearted painting carries a deep and hopeful meaning. The artist places her meditation cushion in front of and in the midst of delicious cakes and cookies. We are surrounded in a triangle of desire. The swirl on the meditation cushion lets us know, sit here and go deep. You'll come to the center, become aware, and that is the key to a peaceful mind. Meditation, Craving, Hunger, Mood is by Lauren Schiller of Middletown, New Jersey. She writes, this painting is about using mindfulness to tolerate cravings and heal addictions. By being able to observe our thoughts, feelings, and cravings, we can begin to see their impermanence. Here we have two very effective, emotive, almost gestural drawings by Bethesda, Maryland artist Alexandra N. Sherman. They're painted with semi-precious stone watercolor on Yupo. First is me and my fear. The artist writes, me and my fear represents the physical manifestation of anxiety and fear. The piece explores the idea of being weighed down by carrying around these heavy emotions. The second is my spirit carrying my body. She writes, My spirit carrying my body depicts the strength of will to persevere that is capable of seeing one through a particularly bad bout of depression or flare, despite the fact that one's body might feel unable to carry on. I'll Always Be Here for You is an extraordinary artist's book and accompanying video by Singapore artist Crystal Sim. It's part of a body of work that stemmed from her struggle with self-harm. In the pages of the book, we see abstracted images of skin that's torn, burnt, and cut. The pages themselves are punched, torn, cut, and sewn. Inside some pages, as we leaf through the book in the video, we see hand-stitched words. I was too sad, so he left. I really don't want to die. In the artist's words, making this work gave me an outlet to express myself in a way I did not have a language for. The work is made into an artist's book to convey the emotions and feelings of a person in distress through images and textiles. It highlights the vicious cycle of self-harm, a cycle that is hard to break out of, as well as the psychological aspects of it that cause people to voluntarily hurt themselves. I'll Always Be Here for You allows viewers to put themselves in the mental state of those that go through self-harm. In A Pale Illusion, Missouri artist Shannon Soldner gives us a visual sensation of what it's like to be stuck. The figure is in a crumpled bed. We don't know how long she's been there. There's a sense of being fractured in many pieces, or coming apart perhaps, from one's very core. The look on the figure's face is lost. Shannon writes, deception plays a significant part in human behavior. Furthermore, self-deception is the innately human ability to conceal the truth from oneself in order to more successfully hide. These deceptions become personal mythologies in order to cope with a sometimes less than perfect reality. In My Head, in My Body is a visceral exhibition about what it means to be a human being. It addresses the ups and downs of our minds and emotions that almost all of us experience, as well as some that only some of us must bear. The multiple artists explore the causes of distress, from sexual trauma, loss, desire, and just being a woman, to the effects of those stressors, such as depression and anxiety, illness, and self-harm. The artists also address strategies for dealing with challenging mental and emotional states, such as meditation, self-care, going within to understand the nature of the mind, and through engagement in the artistic process, through the very act of art making. I thank each of the artists for their clarity, their vision, and their courage.